The Daily Derech. We are walking the path of holiness.
Hello everybody, this is Rabbi Marcus Rubenstein. Welcome to the Daily Derech, a special project of exploring Judaism, the United Synagogue of Conservative Judaism, the Rabbinical Assembly, and Temple of Aaron. Today is the first day after Shabbat Kodesh, the 27th of Tammuz, 5786, corresponding in the secular calendar to Sunday, July 12th, 2026. We will read Parashat Devarim this coming Shabbat. Let's begin. Welcome to Parashat Devarim. Yes, we're starting a new book of the Torah today, Parashat Devarim, and I have something to say. These first three verses of Parashat Devarim are, they are complicated. To actually try to understand what they mean is quite difficult. They're very confusing, and it's funny. I've read them a lot in my life, and I've always noted that they're a little bit strange. But when I actually try to understand what these actually mean and really get serious about it, it can be quite difficult. Let's just say I spent a long time trying to understand these verses today so I could present them to you. But I'm going to try to present some of the ideas around these verses and try to explain them in the best way I possibly can, of course, based on the medieval Mefarshim, the medieval commentators, Rashi, Rambam, Ibn Ezra, Sforno, Chazakuni, all these great rabbis. Okay. Here we go. So we're on the first triennial Torah reading, first triennial Torah cycle reading. We're on the first aliyah of Devarim. Here we go. So we'll learn chapter 1 through 3 today. Ela Devarim asher diber Moshe el kol Yisrael be'avar Yarden b'midbar ba'arava mul suf bein Paran u'bein Tofel Levan v'chatzerot Dizahav. These are the words which Moshe spoke to all Yisrael on the other side of the Yarden, in the wilderness over against Suf, between Paran and Tofel and Levan, and Chatzerot and Dizahav. All right, so we're getting this idea that there are going to be words that are going to be spoken by Moshe, and a big question is going to be, what are these words that we're talking about that Moses is about to speak? There's a big disagreement on this. And the other question that immediately comes up on this verse is, what about all these place names, especially because some of these place names don't seem to actually appear in the Torah? We know, according to Midrashic interpretation and according to the rabbis of the Talmud, that place names like Tofel and Levan never actually appear in a list of journeys that appear in Parashat Moshe. So it's quite a mystery what these words actually mean. So those, I think, are the two sort of major questions with this particular verse. So this verse, there is an argument, a big argument over what these Ela HaDevarim are, these words that Moses is about to speak. According to one interpretation, namely Rashi, kind of Sforno as well, is that these words actually refer to rebuke. That the first 5 or so chapters of the book of Devarim are words of rebuke to the Jewish people. Before any laws are stated, it's just rebuke, right? So these words that Moses is about to say are the words of rebuke to rebuke the Jewish people before they enter the land, to tell them of the sins in which they fell unto in the long 40 years of wandering, so that they can obviously learn from it and grow from it. So these are the words, and at least in one idea that this is marks Devarim as sort of a separate sefer in general, that the rest of the Torah is words of laws, like a lot of different laws, and this is more rebuke, ethical rebuke. And it's also the reason why the book, the translator Onkelos, was really the first translation of the Torah into Aramaic, that's printed on the side of traditional Chumashim, typical books of the five books of Moses, actually says in a lot of these place names, tries to explain what they actually mean. That these place names are not geographical places, but rather they are places in which the Jewish people did something terrible. Like Dizahav is the place where the Jewish people worship the golden calf. Lavan is not a place name. It's where the Jewish people complained about the plainness and the whiteness of the manna. And things like this. Paran is the place in which the spies went out, and so on and so on. So this is sort of one thread of the understanding. One thing that's interesting, I think, about this understanding of the verse is to say that, it's not where we actually are is not a geographical place, but it's the sins in which we've done. It's the sum total of the actions in which we've taken, whether for positive or negative. I think that's deeply meaningful in terms of how we evaluate where we are. Now, this isn't the only way to interpret it. I wouldn't even say this is the majority way. If you look at the other commentaries such as Rambam, Chizikuni, Ibn Ezra, Rashbam, they all disagree with Rashi and Sforno. They specifically say that these are geographical places, and this is describing specifically where Moshe is at this particular time, or where at least they've been over the past couple of years, right? Over the past 40 years. And the reason why there are some names we don't understand, because maybe they're local names. They're names that aren't the official name that is used in Parashat Moshe, describing all the different journeys. But they're sort of alternate names for these places. Fine. But I think the bigger idea of what they're saying actually comes about what they mean by Ela Devarim. For Ibn Ezra and Ramban and Rashbam, they specifically say that Ela Devarim actually refers to the fifth chapter. What it starts with around the fifth chapter of the book of Devarim. I think the end of the fourth chapter. Actually, in Parashat Ve'etchanan, the second parashah of the book of Devarim, that begins with Shema Yisrael and the Ten Commandments. This is when the laws are actually, some of which are repeated laws, and some of which are new laws, begin to be given. And that the first 5 chapters of the book of Deuteronomy, or the first 4 chapters or so, is an introduction of rebuke. And basically, this first sentence is one sentence, and then there's a big interruption with all these words of rebuke that finally starts again back when the commandments are given. And that's actually why it says over there, V'zot a Torah asher sam Moshe livnei Yisrael. That's the thing we say when we hold up our pinky and everything like that. That actual line comes in the end of the 4th chapter of Devarim to signify the fact that we're going back to actually teaching laws in Torah. So this is obviously different, and a different understanding of what these Ela HaDevarim, these things actually are. And it goes with a bigger, in some ways, radical idea. Most of us don't understand. We think, okay, the sin of the spies, in which the Jewish people were doomed to wander the wilderness for 40 years, happened in the 2nd year. It happened at Kadesh Barnea, fine. And these people were going to die in the wilderness. But we kind of never ask, well, what happens in the next 38 years of their wandering? Why? Is because we have some more of the book of Bamidbar that we read, and there's still some more things that happen there, but most of them just don't ask that question. And what these commentators, multiple commentators, Chizikuni, Ibn Ezra, specifically tell us is that no new laws were taught, no Torah was taught after the sin of the spies, all the way until this moment, the 40th year. Why? Because God made a determination that these people weren't going to enter in the land of Israel. So why teach them more laws? God chose and said, I'm not even going to finish the Torah. I'm not going to even go on. These people are going to wander around Har Seir over and over again, and that's it. Pretty crazy to think of that. And so these people who are going into the land of Israel, finally, God is willing to finish the Torah and, of course, review the laws, because it's been 38 years since God has given Torah to the Jewish people. So God has to review the laws that God already taught. The reason that the only laws that really don't appear in Devarim clearly are the laws of the priesthood and the laws of sacrifices. The reason being, at least according to the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat, it says that the priests were extremely diligent in listening to the laws and the instruction to them. And so, therefore, they didn't need a repetition of them. While Am Yisrael, the people who who are going into the land of Israel, did. Okay, fine, but pretty crazy to think of. The second and third verse are in some ways even more confusing, but we don't have that much time, so we're going to try to get them quickly. So the second and third verse, second verse says, it is 11 days journey from Chorev by the way of Mount Seir to Kadesh Barnea. Okay, well, it seems like a random interruption. This 11-day journey? Well, according to most commentators, what this is actually referring to is already another rebuke. That it only takes 11 days to get to Chorev, to Mount Sinai, to Kadesh Barnea, the place where the spies are given out. And even some say that the actual journey itself, when the Jewish people actually took it, only took 3 days. They moved miraculously quickly. Yet, the idea is that they still had to wander around Mount Seir over and over again for 38 years. Why? It's because they had sinned, and it should have never actually been this way. They should have gotten right to Eretz Israel. So this line actually acts as yet another rebuke to the Jewish people, at least according to the eyes of most of the medieval commentators. Finally, and it came to pass in the 40th year, in the 11th month, on the first day of that month, that Moses spoke to the children of Israel according to all the Lord had given him and commandment to them. So, right, this is why the Torah is called the Mishnah Torah here, is that Moshe is now going to repeat all of the mitzvot that need to be taught because, again, they probably forgot them over this long period of time. But the rest of this parsha, and I would say a good amount of Parashat Devarim, is words of rebuke and ethical exhortation. So we're not going to get that for at least until next week, I'd say. More laws. So, yeah, wow. Crazy first 3 lines of Devarim. Never realized that. Hope you enjoyed it today. Mishnah Torah. Today we're going to learn Halacha 12 of chapter 3 of the laws of Kriat Shema. Here we're going to talk about a foul odor in general, right? So we've been talking mostly about seeing excrement or something like that, or some kind of foul odor, and now we're going to talk about smelling it. So you can understand, if you've been listening to our podcast, you've known that the Rambam has really said many times we can't smell anything bad when we're reciting the Shema, and that's a very serious halacha. So he's going to define this and what to do about it when we smell a foul odor. When the source of a foul odor has substance, meaning it's actually something, right? There's a thing to move away from. One may distance himself 4 cubits and recite the Shema, provided the odor has subsided. So the methodology is to walk 6 feet away, basically 4 amot away from the thing. And then if the odor has subsided and you can't smell it anymore, you can recite the Shema. Now, the Rambam isn't telling us this, of course, but he's actually deciding halacha in a dispute in the Gemara. There's a disagreement in Brachot 25a in regards to Rav Huna and Rav Chizda. Rav Huna holds that all you have to do is walk 4 cubits away from a substance that smells really bad, then you can recite Kriat Shema. Rav Chizda requires something extra. What he means is that you have to walk away until it no longer smells, and then walk another 4 cubits, another 6 feet away from the place in which it no longer smells. So, of course, Rav Chizda here is more stringent, more machmir, but Rambam goes according to the opinion of Rav Huna. It should be known that other halachic sources do go by Rav Chizda's position, and it's something in which the Ravid, the arguer against the interlocutor of the Rambam, actually holds according to Rav Chizda, and at least that the Ravid's view is at least mentioned in the Shulchan Aruch itself. So regardless, but I think there's no problem in following Rambam here and following Rav Huna. But if it has not subsided, he should distance himself further until it ceases, right? So even if you've gone the 6 feet, you still need to keep walking and walking if it smells until that smell is gone. So there are some understandings, like Rashi seems to understand that Rav Huna says this is okay, actually, that even if it still smells, you can actually recite the Shema if it's 6 feet away. This is very much a minority opinion, though, and certainly is not Rambam's position, and it's a very lenient understanding of Rav Huna's position in the Gemara, but again, nice lenient position to know about, just in case like you end up doing this and after the fact you realize it does smell, and do you really have to stop? Well, maybe you could follow Rashi at that moment and follow Rav Huna, his lenient understanding of Rav Huna. If the odor is not emanating from an actual substance, e.g. it is the result of someone passing gas, he should distance himself until the odor ceases and then recite. So again, when there's not an actual fixed place where the odor is coming from, because it's not emanating from an actual substance, for example, flatulence, then it's not about distancing oneself a certain amount of feet. Rather, he should just keep going until the odor ceases and then recite it. So very important here. And again, if someone flatulates, including yourself, you can't pray. And also remember, it is forbidden to recite the Shema in front of a cesspool or a chamber pot, even if it is empty and has no foul smell, as it is similar to a latrine, right? So also any other pooping things, like a cesspool where poop goes, it's storage place for poop, or a chamber pot, right? So a thing that people go to the bathroom in if they're sick and can't get up out of bed. Even if these are new cesspools or new chamber pots that haven't been used yet, right? It's similar to the halacha of a bathroom, which because of their designation as that, and that's what their use is, even if they've never been used before, and certainly has no smell. Therefore, the Shema should not be recited against them in any way. Interesting note that a child's potty also is the same thing, right? If you have small children, something that they go to the potty in or something like that, or training in, should also be, we should not recite the Shema near that. Or I would say in a modern case, a diaper pail, right? A diaper pail would be a great example of a chamber pot or a cesspool that we are near, right? So generally, we should probably just not pray in the room in which a diaper pail is in, even if it has the thing that closes so that you can't smell it, even if you have like a really good one, because it's designated as a area where you throw poopy diapers, right? Therefore, you need to be far away from it. It'd be an interesting case if it was not even used yet, where it was just a diaper pail, that fresh new diaper pail. Can you recite the Shema next to it? I think probably according to Rambam here, you couldn't. That you couldn't actually recite the Shema near there because it's been designated for that purpose. Menorat HaMaor. We're going to continue going through this section on how we should look at the sins, the afflictions that we face as a community of the Jewish people from the traditional rabbinic lens out of this wonderful text, the Menorat HaMaor. Very helpful here. And so we're going to continue on from where we last left off. We just learned that, again, the famous Midrashic idea that Avraham chose, through some of God's pushing, that the punishment for his children's sins should specifically be in this world, and should be experienced as exile, as being under the dominion of foreign powers, and not punishment in the world to come, God forbid. And so this is a continuation of that. God also showed the future exiles to Isaac and Jacob, Abraham's his sons, and grandson, through the Holy Spirit. He revealed to them that Israel would one day sin in the land, and because of those sins be driven into exile. Yet it is better for Israel that they be punished in their perishable bodies than in the souls, which are hewn from above and are capable of acquiring wisdom and attaining the life of the world to come. This is what we've been talking about yesterday and the day before, this idea that suffering in this world is much better than suffering in the world to come. Our purpose, our true purpose, is for the world to come, and this is the place of eternity, so it's better to suffer in a perishable body than in an eternal soul. Furthermore, since Israel has been set apart to receive its portion in the land of the living, meaning this world, and this world is the opposite of the world to come, their humiliation in this world will bring them greatness in the future. In the days of the Messiah and at the resurrection of the dead, even for their bodies, and in the world to come for their souls. So there's a lot actually here that I should probably explain. But what the rabbis here are saying is that because the Jewish people were promised the land of Israel in this world, and they become humiliated because they can't live in that land, and because they're being punished by the nations of the world and having to live outside of it and live in exile under harsh regimes, that in the end this will add glory in the future in the world to come, in the time when the Messiah actually arrives. And I think what what this actually, I think, means here is like when that triumphant day comes, when the Messiah comes to deliver the Jewish people and return them to the land of Israel, and when at least the Pharisaic or the rabbinic idea of the communal resurrection of the Jewish people at the end of days as they return to Eretz Israel. And if you don't understand this concept or know this concept, this is a rabbinic sort of innovation that says that at the end of time in the Messianic period, all the Jewish people will be resurrected in body and walk together to the land of Israel. This is a very important rabbinic concept, although a strange one at that, certainly. It's one that would require a lot more study, I think, to understand deeply what the meaning of this is, but it's definitely a belief that is throughout the rabbinic understanding. And the idea of this is that at that end of the day, when things are so triumphant, because they've been through so many horrible, horrible, horrible things, that at the end of the day, that this is going to be even more glorious, that they've come from so low and now are going from so far. And I think in some ways we're experiencing this in our day, right? The state of Israel having it at this moment and fighting for it is such a machaya, it's such an incredible experience. And in some ways, it wouldn't be as incredible if we didn't have it for the past 2,000 years, right? It wouldn't be as incredible without the Holocaust. And no one's saying the Holocaust should happen or that should have happened, God forbid. But certainly it makes it more glorious to have it now that we've suffered so incredibly. So very important ideas that are being placed here. And so, I think that this, again, is a great way of sort of understanding Jewish history, that what we make it through, what we suffer through in this world, will only make the end, when we are finally redeemed from our suffering, all the more so beautiful. And I think also to understand this dark and this hard time when we're supposed to be meditating on the sufferings of the Jewish people, the historic sufferings, that in the end, like, we're not here to just everything just to be good, right? And to never suffer and to have it easy. But rather, we're made to be spiritual human beings. We're made to attain wisdom. We're made to acquire the world to come. We're made to work in this world. And so I think just by applying and understanding, like, what is the purpose of actually being in this world? Is it just to achieve as much pleasure as possible, to suffer the least amount? Not according to the rabbis. It's to attain wisdom, to nurture our souls, so that we can attain the true life in the world to come. Well, that's it for today, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to the Daily Derech. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to email me anytime at rmr@templeofaaron.org. Thank you so much for listening. There are so many people to thank, and you can look in the show notes for that. And also, if you want to know and see any of these texts in the original, we actually have that too. You can actually find that in our episode description. So look in each of the episode descriptions and you'll find that information right there. Thank you very much. Have a great day, everybody.